This is Tractor Tuesday Live, hosted by sixth-generation Nebraska farmer and Tractor Tuesday founder Zach Bosley and Scott Anderson, owner of New Age Ag Supply. Join them each week as they sit down with farmers, innovators, dealers, and creators who are enhancing the culture within agriculture, right here on Tractor Tuesday Live.
Hey, it's Tuesday. Zach Bosley here with Tractor Tuesday Live, joined again with the one and only Scott Anderson, New Age Ag Supply. Today we've got an awesome guest, somebody I'm really excited to get to know a little bit better, learn more about kind of the backstory. But we've got Denny Bollig from Drago, and Drago North America might be the most appropriate way to say it. But Dennis, thanks for hopping on. How's it going out there today?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, really good. We've got an interesting deal. It's like an inside joke now, but my wife is laboring basically here at the office. And at some point, we're going to go down about 3 blocks. We might even just walk. Seems to help speed up the thing. And yeah, we'll have a live birth hopefully here today. So I guess that's a Tractor Tuesday exclusive. So
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. Well, hopefully nobody breaks into my house, so they know we're all gone now. But Dennis, yeah, it's awesome to have you on. You've got an amazing story, and it all kind of stemmed, from your neck of the woods in Iowa and some of your other connections. But for those in the audience, some of these millennials and Gen Z kids that don't know you yet, if you wouldn't mind, just maybe a brief introduction, who you are and where you're from.
Well, I am from north central Iowa. Address is Fenton, but I claim a town or a city called Seneca, and we live in the suburbs of Seneca, about 2 miles out. There's let me see how many people in Seneca. I think we got 5. We have 5 people in Seneca. So, no, north central Iowa. Corn, soybean, mainly corn. I've been farming since 73, 74. It was an interesting time to start, and been an interesting life. Yeah,
no, and really, I'm kind of shocked, at your age. You look very young, and my dad graduated high school in 73. He was a little bit younger, but he just turned 70 in 25 here. But yeah, it's a cool time to get into it because you look at the commodity prices, more so recently, and in 73, you were about there on corn. And I never looked up the bean price back then, but I'm sure it was a huge windfall then too.
Let me put it, because the 321 out of the field, the first crop I ever grew. I remember my dad and my uncle saying, "Hey, this ain't no gravy train," and by the next year or so, I think it was down to $1.58. Okay, and so it was welcome to farming, and but to put it in perspective on dollars, we had 321. Like I said, the price might have got up even higher than that. I was just selling it right out of the field. I didn't know a lot about marketing, and but had a new half-ton 4-wheel drive pickup because I never did go to college. I was signed up but didn't show up. Didn't make sense. Didn't make sense to go to college when you didn't know what you wanted to do. My dad never promoted farming. My dad didn't have a lot of acres. He had 138 acres and some rented ground. He farmed with his uncles, his brothers or my and so I actually instead of going to college, just went and got a job and worked at Snap-on. They have a little Snap-on building toolboxes and stuff. Yeah. Being a robot, best way to describe that job. And
you worked in the factory at Snap-on.
Yeah, it was one of the best things I ever did because I didn't know what I wanted to do the rest of my life, but I found out what I didn't want to do the rest of my life, and that was working as a robot. So that's I had an opportunity, a small piece of land came up. And started farming, and that year grain prices were, when you look back, according to what your dollar was worth then, was very good. 321 and I had a new half-ton four-wheel drive pickup that I bought, off of working, Snap-on, $4,200, new half-ton four-wheel drive.
Wow.
Now think of that. And right now, what farmers are dealing with right now is, low commodity prices, but high input costs, high equipment costs. So,
Well, and I wonder what the price of gold and silver were. We ought to have my dad in the background chime in and give us some updates. But it's interesting. And you're exactly right. Just the cost of inputs and, really, I think especially when you were getting into agriculture as your own producer with your own operation, I think things were pretty standard. There really wasn't a lot of the innovation yet. You were just kind of on the cusp of, probably maybe finger pickup planters. I guess I'm not exactly sure, on some of the technology yet, or it was just dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, the timing of it. And again, we went, Darlene and I, my wife Darlene and I, they have Drago Tech USA, and we have a farm business, Bollig Farms Inc.
Mm-hmm.
That works very closely with Drago.
Mm-hmm.
We had some very, very difficult years financially.
Yeah.
But when you look back, it changed how I looked at ag. I mean, ag wasn't, it was truly looking at it as a business. And as we started to farm, my dad passed away a couple of years after I started farming. He died at 56. And my older brother, Jim, came back. He had gone to, 4 years college. He was a ag lender for FMHA, I believe. And he came back, started farming. He had a job in a local bank as a loan officer. And then we started farming what Dad and Mom owned, and then what little rented ground. I think we had a total of 400 acres. And
what were your yields
that time, during that period, ag cycled, and when we've had several cycles that were pretty strenuous, but it really changed me on how I looked at equipment and what it could do, and set off a chain of events that, put us where we are now.
And Scott was asking, what was your, roughly your yields back then when you started getting in?
If we could get 150 bushel corn, we thought it was, it was pretty dang good, and bean yields were typically in upper 30s, low 40s, if you had the right soils. We have a lot of high pH soils in our North Iowa area there, so beans are challenging, and right now we're 95% corn on corn. But we're a corn head distributor, so it makes sense to grow corn, and it gives us lots of testing.
Well, and we get away with a lot of corn on corn here in my neck of the woods too, and it's always fun to rotate to beans after about 10 years of straight corn on corn. Then you'll have something to really brag to your neighbors about. But was it that same way in the 70s as well, or were you guys rotating more back then?
We were corn bean rotation back then. Very much corn bean rotation. You could see the remnants in the neighborhood where there used to be, where the rotation used to be, corn, beans, alfalfa, oats, and that started going away pretty quickly, as we moved into the 70s and 80s.
So what was peaking? Yeah, sorry, Scott, go ahead.
What generation farmer are you, Denny?
I am. Let's see. Our business is right across the road from my grandfather's farm, 1895. So I would be 1, 2. I'm third generation. My boys would be our boys would be the fourth generation, and
it goes quick. And then at what point, into your operation, what piqued the interest in your mind to start thinking more so, maybe not as an inventor, but more of an innovative thoughts? How did that creep in?
as a necessity to do something different than everybody else, because not everybody can't do the same thing and everybody be profitable. I mean, that might be a simplistic way of looking at it. I sometimes when you have that interest in doing something different, sometimes that can be helpful, sometimes that can be distracting, and from a true business standpoint. But I enjoyed trying to solve issues, trying to make our farm more efficient, with every aspect of growing a crop, and again, started farming, you drug the corn or you rotary hoed it, and then you cultivated it and you cultivated it, and then maybe you laid it by and cultivated it again. And so there's lots of trips, and I just was always looking to be more efficient, and one thing led to another. So.
Yeah. And then I guess, from that, I guess, when did the whole story somewhat start to create itself here? I know there was a few introductions along the way that ultimately led to where, what you've created here in North America.
For right now, Dragotech USA, when we are a distributor for North America for the Drago corn head built in Italy, built by a great family. And this is what I'm been blessed with is getting to know some great families and some great people that have created opportunities. And right now the company is going gangbusters. We're actually bucking the negative trend right now on equipment sales. Our boys just informed us that our orders we're already over last year right now.
Nice.
On cornhead orders, which I think speaks to the product. It speaks to what our company and our employees try to do is produce the best product that can help the farmers be more profitable. Try to create a product that is more durable, because it's all about return on investment, and for us capturing more yield at the same time. And so it's led us to a company that, the idea that, we're very comfortable. We're at number 3, probably pushing number 2 in North America for corn heads. And, we're, sales of up to 100 million a year.
Oh,
and but who do we have I have a lot of people to thank to get to this point, and then I will get into how this. I just kind of want to give you an idea of where we're at, but I have a lot of people to thank. I appreciate you guys giving me this chance, because I appreciate our customers, the farmers that bought something that wasn't green or red, and has stuck with us, and the dealers. Right now I think we have probably 150 dealer locations in 30 states. So appreciate very much, thank our dealers, our territory reps that work their butt off to be where we focus mainly on one product. The company that builds the Drago Automac has been building corn heads since 1954. That's the same year John Deere built its first corn head. With the idea they've been focusing just on corn heads for over 50 years is a amazing fact. And we have reps, and then I have to thank our business, our employees. That our whole thing is to do what's right for the customer, parts and service, because there's one thing to sell something and there's another thing to have the parts and the service support.
Right.
And so it's training our dealers, from a parts standpoint. We're the only company I know that have a no back order guarantee on parts. In other words, if our corn head breaks down during harvest and we happen to tell our dealer, the customer goes to our dealer, and we back order that part. If that was to ever happen, which I don't think it ever has in 20 plus years, the part and the shipping is free to the customer.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't believe any other ag company does that, and I would dare them to try. So my employees, we are blessed with having great, passionate employees all the way through the company. I'm blessed to have 3 sons in the business with me, with Darlene and myself, and we that are just as passionate as I am about doing the right thing for the product and for our customers. And, then I'm very grateful, my wife Darlene had to put up with a lot. First of all, I told you earlier that she always told her dad she was never going to marry a farmer because she had to do cows and and stuff like that. And then he married me, and we moved out to a drafty old farmhouse where when the wind blew, the curtains blew in the house. And then
kind of hard to keep it heated.
And then we went, and then financially, ag cycled, and we had something, and then it went away, and we had climbed out of a hole, and then ag cycled, and it went away, so a lot of times as I was growing the businesses or different companies I worked with, she was at home managing the family, answering the phone. This is before cell phones. So she'd taken a lot of calls and doing books and trying to raise the kids while I'm off trying to create a business.
You're right.
So,
and it's quite the undertaking. And at what point, did this become an official endeavor then?
The actual Drago Tech USA was about 2002. We brought our first corn heads in 2001.
Okay.
And, 2002, but the trip started. That path started years before, and if you don't mind, I can.
Oh, please, yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Started farming at 73, 74. Survived the 80s barely. Land prices. We had some land that at that time it popped up in our area to $300 to $3,500 an acre. It had some family land that came up that'd been in the family quite a while, and either my brother and I scratched together some money and bought it, and within 3 years later it was worth $1,000 an acre.
Yeah.
How did that work, Denny? Did you have a bank loan on it? Did the bank call you?
Yeah, we had a bank loan. I think my brother lined that up with one of the insurance companies and stuff. And when it really tanked, then he was, you're hearing that some loans were getting written down, and so my brother, approached them that, and they just laughed and they said, "Hell no, you're still paying your bills."
Yeah.
It's worth less than what you paid for it, but you're still paying your bills.
Yeah.
That's great.
That just, and then so as we moved into the 80s, we were on soybeans. We were running a 20-foot drill, and that drill we would try to do custom work besides to help try to come up with money any which way we could. But when you spend hours and days on an open tractor with a 20-foot drill behind you, you have a lot of time to think, and you have a lot of time to watch.
Yeah.
What I started seeing was that we were working the ground ahead of the drill with a field cultivator. I mean, it's typical conventional tillage. And I noticed that, that drill, was a tie drill, and so it didn't have much for depth control, that the field cultivator was actually setting the depth for the drill. And as I did that, watched that, then I started researching these air systems that were running in Dakotas called Concords.
Yeah.
There's many different brands up there. You had FlexCoil, you had Morris, and anyway, I met some people at a farm show, and and discussed it with my brother Jim about, buying one to pull behind the field cultivator and blow the beans underneath the sweep. And so we worked the ground, plant the beans. It would be, narrow row or solid seeded. And, it was a big venture for us because we got to borrow the money because there was just wasn't sitting around. And there was concerns that, whether it pay for itself. And so I researched some more and then got where we started, where we could use it for banding fertilizer. It's a 2-tank system. Okay. And big, if most people know what an air system, it had a big fan on the back end and it blew it up through your field cultivator, toolbar, planter, and it would divide the product with an air manifold that looked like a lot of spaghetti and divide it up and put it wherever you wanted. And we ended up putting it behind the corn planter, and we banded our P and K at the time, and we were able to very much reduce our fertilizer cost and increase our yield at the same time. Was it a pain in the butt compared to just putting corn in the box and planting? Yes, but it made us money. Hooked it behind the field cultivator and started planting soybeans that way. A lot of my neighbors noticed, they liked the idea of planting soybeans where you could put 150, 200 bushels behind you in a 4-wheel cart. And go and go and go and have one person could work the ground, plant the beans, and you had an auger to fill. Fast, convenient, and did a good job. And the fertilizer thing, we sold, and then Darlene and I started, neighbors were interested, so we started selling them. But the field cultivator thing, planting with the field cultivator, really popped. At that time, the seed cost was pretty nil because you could use bend run seed. You just save some beans and have them cleaned, and so in this process we would use more than what a planter would. We wouldn't use any more than what a drill would. We started selling that air system for Concord. We were a dealer for them. And we did that for about 4 years. And I think the last few years we were selling like 35 units. And I had some guys that worked with me, and we'd go put this manifold on. And it really moved pretty fast. We then at the next step, and I met a lot of people.
What years were you dealing the Concord drills, Denny?
What's that?
What years was it that you were dealing the Concord drills? When did you get into that?
We got in. We bought an air system in 87, 88. Probably started selling them in the 90s. And went about 3-4 years selling them, and it was best thing. I got to meet people. I got to meet more farmers and from different areas of the Corn Belt. Then DMI, I don't know if you guys are familiar with DMI. They got bought by Case. Great tillage company out of Goodfield, Illinois, approached Concord and say, hey, we'd like to sell that through our network of dealers throughout the North America, and so then DMI came to me and said, hey, we want you to work for us. And what I was doing, my thing was educational marketing, where I would go into a meeting with farmers one-on-one or a group, and I would explain to them, the mechanics of being able to plant soybeans with a field cultivator, and really talk about how different planting a soybean versus corn is. Corn needs complete seed to soil contact on all sides to get proper germination. The soybeans, you can lay it on a wet napkin, and it's going to grow. We could explain that and show that the depth control wasn't as critical as corn. Soybeans were pretty flexible that way. Not packing the ground above the seed. If you put the seed on a firm bottom, like the sweep on a field cultivator created, left like loose soil above, that bean could move up through, it worked very well. And so we're selling a number of them. DMI approached me. I agreed to work with them. I started traveling and doing information meetings, or this educational marketing, and I was doing meetings anywhere from Topeka, Kansas to Middletown, Maryland. And again, I got to meet great people, dealers, and I traveled with DMI. I traveled with Dick Brown, the vice president of marketing, and he kind of put me under his wing, and he would, as we're spending hours on the road, he's great educational on marketing. And I got to work with, some great engineers like Kerry Seislove out of DMI, and I was always somewhat mechanical. I always liked working with my hands, welding, modifying equipment. That went on for about 2-3 years, and then Case IH approached Concord, the air system company out of Fargo, and purchased that. And the good people up at Concord recommended that they contact me. I had some great people up there, that Gene Brecker, that was first salesman from Concord I met, and that was basically encouraging me that I could sell. At first I kind of go, what, me? No, I'm just a farmer. I can't do that. But yeah, and anyway, Case IH took over. Then they also said, hey, you can build, modify, create. We're going to give you some projects. So for 3 years, I built 3 different planter prototype systems for them using different toolbar designs. They give me openers and an oddball toolbar they want to use. I would hook a air system up to it and get it to plant corn and band fertilizer. But I also worked with where we did seed on demand, where we'd have corn in one tank of the Concord, and fertilizer in the back tank. And I would do seed on demand to the meter, which was a cyclo. This is how far back this is a cyclo drum, and so I was doing the seed on demand, which is very common now, with a lot of planters. And but I got to meet fascinating people. I got to meet the dreamers in Case IH that go and buy companies, and then I got to meet great engineering people. And then I with those projects, I had a couple of engineers basically live with me for 3 years, building three different prototypes. I got to the point where I just envied people that backed into their shed and hooked up to the same stuff they'd been using for years, So anyway, I
remember those days with the horse stuff when Dad was here prototyping everything.
But in those days with Concord, then I met Scott's dad, Kevin, at the Concorders owners meetings while all this is happening, and he was wonderful to share his experience and what he was doing in the wheatland and moving into corn and soybean technology, so I think 3-4 years with Case, and I got to meet the good old boys in Case IH too. That once the dreamers get done playing with their new ball and new company, they hand it over to the good old boys that run that, and they basically say, okay, you get in line. This is the way you're going to do it. And I very much realized where I'd worked with DMI, Concord, a very quick reactive companies, very good, mid-sized, smaller companies. And then you work for a major and you get to see the positives and the negatives of a major.
Right.
And so yeah, then Kevin Anderson, then took me to Europe in, I believe, '99. I got to meet, toured some different companies. Actually toured Geringhoff, very good company in Germany, and some other companies. But they were also people that came from nothing and started something, and it was a fascinating trip. And through that, then Kevin and Michael Horsch were setting up a company, Horsch Anderson, in the United States, and I got involved with them, and I built a 40-foot double fold, it's a tillage seeding toolbar. I mean, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Scratch. They supplied certain components, some caster wheels and an air tank, but basically the whole frame, the whole folding mechanism, built it totally from scratch in my shop.
Yeah.
And was, planting corn and soybean with it on anything from 30-inch rows to 15-inch rows, and then still being able to use it in the fall as a chisel plow to band fertilizer. And
so was this fully mounted then, or how was the double fold action?
The 40-foot floating hitch.
Okay.
It wasn't a field cultivator, and it wasn't really a chisel plow. There was something in between.
Okay.
But it was a very heavy duty frame, but a floating hitch. I don't know if you know what a floating hitch was, where it has the caster wheels out front. You have wheels kind of towards the back, and then wheels.
Okay.
Your hitch on there wasn't rigid. It would just kind of float and allow the tillage machine to kind of follow the ground contour better. And interesting part of my, I don't know if I'd want to repeat that, the amount of hours and blood, sweat, and tears we put into that. But through that whole process with Kevin and with Horsch, they knew of people in Germany that were handling the Drago corn head, and that would be the great family, the Baumans, Joseph and Elizabeth Bauman. And the factory, Olemac, again, another super family. I can't stress that enough, that has a passion on building a great product, and they do it from a precision standpoint and a manufacturing standpoint at the same time. But they decided to send Joseph Bauman from Germany. That was like, basically he's my counterpart right now. He handles all of Europe. Him and his family, they have in South Africa. They have a sales organization actually all the way into China too. And, but anyway, Joseph came to check us out, and Joseph is a great big German farm boy that's pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and we struck up a great relationship right there. And he decided, went back and talked with the factory and decided that we were maybe one of the best opportunity to break into the U.S. market with the Drago corn head. Yeah. So that, that kind of, and that would have been, 2001, we received our first corn head. 2000, by the end of 2002, we decided we were going to pick up and run with it. We started setting up dealers, and a lot of the contacts that I had, through the different things that I'd done and relationships I'd met before, were very valuable at that point, that I could walk back into some other dealerships, whether they were DMI dealers or case dealers, and say, hey, I've got something to show you. And but we also walked in with a corn head that was a metal corn head. Yeah. And the whole market was poly. And so you talk about trying to go uphill. But we had features on the original Dragos that we still have today, and that was automatic self-adjusting deck plates. But we initially were, when we looked at the head, that was one of the first chopping heads. Gearing had been into the country for a while with their rotodisc, and we brought in a chopping corn head, but till we ran it, we didn't realize what we had, because immediately you could see how the Drago handled the corn differently. It pulled the plant down slower. You had less ear bounce. And then the idea of deck plates, that each row is adjusting itself with no electronics, no hydraulics. Each row is making that decision for you. And at the same time, corn genetics were rapidly changing from being something that didn't dry down in the field very well. When we used to pick corn like we did for decades, you couldn't pick corn too early, because if you put it in a corn crib whether if it wasn't cold out, it would spoil. So corn did not dry down very well. Then, one of my first varieties I planted when I started farming was 3780 Pioneer. It was a huge number. If then only the old guys in the crowd are going to remember. But it had a characteristic where it dried down in the field versus the L45 DeKalb that wouldn't dry down. But as we moved into those kind of genetics that dried down rapidly in the field, which from a farmer standpoint, if you're drying corn, using LP, using energy savings, so it became not just having a good yield, but having a good yield, and the corn was, dried down. Economically very beneficial for the farmer. But it also created another problem, and that is the drier the corn is, the easier it shells. It becomes fragile. You take a dry ear of corn and drop it on something hard, and the kernels all fly off the butt, and that's what we call butt shelling. So with the Drago being able to pull the plant down slower, you had less impact at the deck plate. With the deck plates always set up against the stock perfectly, that reduced shelling loss itself. Again, the other side of the market with our the majors and the green and our green friends and red friends, had hydraulic deck plates that, the operator has to make that decision as he goes across the field on how close do I run my deck plates to the stock, which is impossible to see from the cab. If you've ever harvested corn and the amount of material that's flowing down with your travel speed and it's changing, your stock width is constantly changing as you go across the field, and let alone from one row to the next. So automatic deck plates, we started to see some amazing, results, especially in the drier corn. Early season yield loss can come from too much ear bounce, where you actually bounce the ear out of the head. Again, pulling the plant down slower very much helped that.
How does it have the ability to pull the plant down slower?
Well, the design of the Drago corn heads then and now is a longer stock roller, probably the longest stock roller in the industry. That with the length of the stock roller, you have more time to pull the plant down slower. If you have a shorter stock roller, you have to do the job quicker, and the quicker you pull it down, the more velocity the ear hits the steel deck plate. And so the length of that stock roller is critical to be able to, because if you want to drive at any kind of a speed fairly fast, you've got to get that plant pulled down before you rip the plant right out of the ground. So having that length gives you more time, and then that's you know, that's the beauty. It still is. It's something very simple, but it's the length. The longer the row unit, the more time you have to pull the plant down. And
how come John Deere, in your mind, hasn't copied that? Because that seems like a pretty easy solution, right? Okay, let's just extend the length of the rollers, and then we can all slow our heads down and go fast.
no, that's no. Well,
Hard to say, huh?
but you know, they're good people at John Deere. You know, that John Deere, the original John Deere head. I grew up with John Deere equipment. I grew up. It was kind of a, you know, I had some uncles that had John Deere, some that had Case, some that had Moline, and so I wasn't, you know, all one color by any means, but combines, you know, we had I remember the 95s, the 105s. 6600s, 7700s, 7720s, you know, 95 series. But the corn heads, you know, our first corn head was like a 1970 4-row 30 444. And guys, you know, you look at that gearbox and you look at the stock rollers and deck plates. Yeah, have they changed? Yeah, a little bit. But I don't know. That head, the old John Deere heads is a benchmark in corn head history compared to what, you know, to what IH had and compared to what some of the other brands were. I mean, it was and a benchmark product, you know, when they came out with that in the very late 60s, and you know, I don't know. I guess part of this is you know, again, we work with a great family that has been focusing on nothing but corn heads for over 50 years.
Yeah.
And with that, they you know, when the Olamac people and it's the Carboni family, you have Jesse, Josephi and Maria, and then you have Anso and his sister Danielle. But when they come and they'd ride almost. These people were passionate about understanding the whole process, and you know, it isn't like, you know, you ride in a cab. They'd be standing down on the edge of the feeder house, or actually standing on the PTO shaft, you know, where the shaft is turning inside the plastic.
Yeah.
Just scared the bejesus out of me, but they would just study. They would study things and how the interaction between, you know, their head and that corn plant, and there's so much variety. You gotta realize, you know, we sell Dragos anywhere from, you know, southern Texas to Canada, and the different harvesting conditions and the different varieties are huge. There's can be such a difference. And so it's really designing a head that you know, can handle those conditions. And another feature, you know, on a Drago back then and Drago now, is having gathering chains that are more aggressive. That they actually, the fingers on the gathering chains actually overlap in the front and then fade away as it moves up the deck plate. And what it allows is to reach down corn, reach down, pick it up, introduce it to the deck plates. The gathering chains actually work with the automatic deck plates, you know, at the same time, to enter it into that deck plate, because you know, some stocks are not weak enough to maybe create the deck plates to move, and the chain mechanism works with it. But we found that there's no corn head that can match the Drago in down corn. When you can get down, get the stock, pick it up. So it's another way of we eliminate or reduce. We can't eliminate all harvest loss. Anytime you're harvesting corn with anybody's corn head, you're going to have harvest loss. Yeah. Our whole goal is to reduce it, and reduce it to a level that makes the head pay for itself. Because, you know, that's what equipment's got to do. Yeah. It just look nice. It's got to have a return on investment, and it's got to pay for itself. So, yeah. You know, but realizing we were introducing a metal head when John Deere and Case had poly heads, and you know, we had a chopping mechanism, and you know, to break into a market, you know, we eventually put poly on in like 2004, I believe 2005. We have a company here in the United States that builds our poly, and so, you know, heads come in, we can put, you know, 5 different colors of poly on, you know, green, red, yellow, gray, you know, to match whatever combine you want. And also, the ultimate goal of a Drago corn head is to make every brand of combine, every brand, function better and harvest better and be more efficient. So these heads are designed to be able to go on any combine in the world. If you trade combines, you can change out the faceplate, PTO shafts, and move it to another machine. It's not, you know, that head isn't married to a certain specific type of combine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we so to us to break into that market and go in and actually talk to farmers about buying a metal head that had a unique color. We had a very unique color, that Olemax color, just like it was kind of a reddish orange with a neon yellow stripe. You could see it from about 5 miles away.
Yeah.
But that was their color in Europe for that family. I mean, you realize they were getting to be very dominant over there, and they you know, Europe is that rainbow of colors compared to the United States. And I started going around setting up dealers, and you know, using contacts I had. We were one of our very first dealers was Bancroft Implement or Red Power in North Iowa. I think they're at least 10 stores now. Hinton family, Randy Hinton, he's not with us anymore, gave us an opportunity to show what we could do, and started becoming a dealer by the end of 2002. Then our next one was Arnold's up in Minnesota. Great dealership up there with John Arnold and his brothers. Their top sales manager was Tom Schaefer. I went in to talk to him, and he was, you know, not really interested, and but he's, you know, he said, I'll give you about 15 minutes. So, you know, you feel like a pots and pails salesman.
Right.
You just go in there, and I said, okay. You know, I had a row unit in the back of my truck that I designed where I could pull that heavy row unit out, put it on wheels, take it into any room. So the 15 minutes went to an hour. Yeah. Went longer, and then he called in other people, and then he called in the service people, and then while I was talking about all the features and quality of the Drago, I'd take a little impact and I'd tear it apart right in front of him. Take stock rollers out, flip it open up deck plates, open up the gearbox. Yeah. And, anyway, he asked me after I left, after 4 hours, and I finally took off. I'm home. I think I had about a 4-hour drive. And he called me up and said, Denny, why don't you come up and do a meeting for us? We're going to invite 6 farm families in, 6 operations. And I went up there, did a meeting, and enjoyed interacting with farmers. And he called me the next day and he said, Denny, we want to buy 7 corn heads. Nice. He said, everybody in the room wants a corn head. Yeah. That's amazing. It was, and it's a metal corn head. Yeah, right. It's a metal corn head with a weird color. Yeah. And we had, and then you really start to know you got something. But then but we had to change. We had to, and going to the factory and the family, the Carbonis that have Olamac, and saying, hey, we need a different color. We're going to need poly. So they redesigned the head where we could put poly on, and they changed a core color to a metallic charcoal gray that we have today. And and then, we continued to set up more and more dealers, and then we've been on a constant improvement. Every corn head is man-made. I don't care whose it is. It will wear and it will break.
Yeah.
It's just making sure, we have the parts and components and share the knowledge on how to service and support that head.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it seems like from my experience here in near Hastings, Nebraska, that once a dealer was onboarded, just the amount of passion that those mom and pop dealerships had with the product. And I think that was different and always stood out. I mentioned earlier about Jim Fairbanks and what was going on here locally. And, once my dad got wind from Jim, you almost felt guilty not running one. And it was just because everybody that had their eyes on them or dug into them, oh, it's easier to get to the gearbox. No, the way that everything's set just makes a little bit more sense. And it was almost hard to believe. I think that was a lot of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a learning curve. It was just like, how did these guys from Italy get over here with such a superior product?
Well, and again, our environment is maybe a little different than Europe. I mean, when you go into, like, especially southern Germany, northern Italy, where Italy, you kind of go, why they build a corn head there? Well, that's where the factory is on the headwaters of the Po River Valley, which would be like their Mississippi Valley, but it runs from west to east over the Adriatic, and their corn is huge. I mean, their corn makes, you got to go down to maybe some of our southern states. The corn is so tall that a lot of times in the cab, you can't see. It's like going into a forest. And and it's a big plant. I'm not saying, yields are solid yields over there, but they don't get as cold as I think we do in the winter. And so their springs are a little warmer. During the vegetative growth of corn, the nodes are farther apart, so they get a taller corn. It's just like here, when you plant a corn early in the season and you plant that same corn, like replant it, later, it actually is taller. It gets taller, because of the climate when it was in the vegetative state. So that, they're talking about handling big plants. And so you can see where the taller the plant, the more importance, how you have a lot more things to pull down to get it in there. I think our corn is drier, and very quickly they were seeing that maybe their impact more here on having less shelling loss and butt shelling. And we had an opportunity then through there was Graham Quick out of Iowa State. I don't know, he was Australian, but he wrote great books on engineering books and on things on harvesting corn. And he contacted us, wanted to know some more about it. And I said, well, here's the head. Come up here. We'll bring in a competing head, and we'll let you run them in the field side by side, and we'll let you count the difference on the corn on the ground. And what he did was document for every eighth of an inch of misadjustment on hydraulic deck plates can cost you X amount of bushels. And it and again, that's what we try to do, is not just say, here we can show you, what the difference is. And yield loss varies throughout the fall. It varies throughout the day, and of course it varies hugely with variety. the same variety in the morning. If you have a dry corn plant that the corn is dry, ear is dry, and but the plant is a little wet from dew, or maybe it's drizzling out or something, you can see a tremendous amount of more head loss at that situation.
Yeah.
When you get into the afternoon, it gets more trashy. You maybe have less. So it can vary from day to day, but from 1 hour to the next. And what, the thing with hydraulic deck plates, and believe me, Olimac, before they had automatic deck plates, they had hydraulic deck plates way before any of the
Anybody.
here. Yeah. They had hydraulic deck plates, but it's what they evolved into was saying that, it's to accurately set your hydraulic deck plates. You almost have to stop every once in a while, get out, move the residue out of the way, because the head loss goes on the ground immediately, and then all the plant residue is on top of it. And so, to see it, and you have to stop. Well, when I'm harvesting, I don't want to stop. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
We got to get this done.
Yeah.
You're pushed by the weather or whatever. You got acres to do. And then, the hydraulic ones is that people, if they run them too tight, you start to plug the row unit.
Yeah.
You'll plug the row unit and start breaking the plants off, bringing more plants in, which creates separation problems in your combine. The best place to be is just up against the stock, and that's where the Drago has that. And but anyway, we broke into the market, and we grew our dealership and our network. We changed.
Was there a big tipping point from, just getting some of those earlier Case IH dealers onboarded to, instead of you making the travel to make the pitch and the demonstration, to more dealers calling you guys proactively to get set?
Yes. And we had magazine articles. I'd been in magazine articles with my Concords and Field Color, and I had magazine articles, Farm Journal, Wall Street, not Wall Street, but the Successful Farmer.
Yeah.
And so the magazine people, because I was doing some things way back when that, back to the Concord stuff, that I was variable rating P and K with a 2-tank air system. I was changing the ratio of P and K as I was banding fertilizer.
Okay.
And there was no GPS back then.
Right.
I had a soil map in front of me. I knew my land, and I knew where I needed more P and K, you knew what the soil tests were and stuff. And so I was just manually doing that in the field. And so then, even I got to the point where on soybeans, I was changing varieties on the go. Where you just flip a switch and you change varieties, and you put a bean where you need it, and not where another one where you needed something else. And so this idea of, when you're talking to dealers and you've got something new, and you're in the magazines, farmers are calling us. And, we were hesitating to, we had farmers calling us from way outside of where we were. And I was refusing to sell something, very far out, because I wanted the importance of a dealer support.
Yeah.
It's man-made, it will break. It's mechanical. And so I would hesitate and try not to sell something outside of a set up service area. Okay. So the farmers would then say, well, they would recommend certain dealers in their area. And then we would, and now, and today that we, our territory reps, so we have 5 territory reps that handle all of the US and Canada. And we're constantly looking at, new dealer opportunities. And but we want the right partnership with we want them to make money, Because, if you want them to give you good the customer good service support, they got to make a dime. The farmer make a dime, and so the understanding is that they want to contract with us, that they got to carry a certain amount of parts compared to their orders and inventory.
Right.
And again, we back that up by carrying more parts than we should have.
Yeah.
Make sure that when bad things happen, whether you run into something, because there's a lot of obstacles out in those cornfields too.
Yeah.
It's a high wear item. Harvesting corn is a very violent process, and so we're continuing to this day pick up more dealers, but another thing that as we progressed was the Olmec. Great, again, just from a family standpoint, great family, but they had a passion for always knowing there's another level. There's another level in our original legacy heads, the metal heads, and then we had when we had the initial poly heads, and then we went Drago Series 2, and they all had some improvements. But then, in about 2016, I believe, we Olmec developed what we call the GT, the GT series, Drago GT. That had brought so many unique ideas to the industry that other companies would have spread it out over four different models. Because it was just a huge technology jump in gearbox design and in yield savings and like that. We're extremely proud of the Drago GT. On its performance, its resale value, its durability.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole nother, because it's got features that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And it's been exciting to work with, and it's just really accelerated our market share.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was probably around the first time I really started to take notice was the GT series. I was with a customer, if you will. They just switched to 20-inch rows, Dallas County, Iowa. And so I believe, unless I'm remembering it wrong, but they had a folding, and it was the only model they could get, I believe, in a 24-row folding 20-inch head. And man, that was a heavy son of a gun. They had a 790 on tracks at the time. It was right on the cusp of the X9 coming out. And this guy, I mean, he basically was the most John Deere loyalist person on earth, but really you couldn't get him away from a Drago either. And so it was really interesting. And I had no idea, you could just hop in and basically harvest corn and basically cut almost in any direction. And unless I have it mistaken, he might have been even 15-inch on the corn. And it was just...
And the aggressive chain, situation, hardly gathering chains. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, when GT came in, we did that introduction, and it was amazing that so many features, where the continuation of longer stock rollers still is a key. It seems simple. And the smaller diameter too. This is where you see a lot of corn heads run a pretty good sized diameter.
Yeah.
And the relationship of that diameter to where the deck plate and where that ear is taken off is critical on getting a good release of that ear from the stock. And the closer that the meshing of that stock roller, where it actually is pulling that plant down in relation to where the ear is taken off, that distance it can make a big difference on how a machine works. Now, we have there's a lot of good heads out there. Okay, John Deere builds a good head.
Yeah.
Case builds a good head. Okay,
Mhm.
Gearinghoff builds a good head.
Right.
They're not a great head. Drago is a great head.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I don't want to throw mud at it. They do okay. They do okay. But in times like this, okay isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And you need something that gets the maximum amount of yield that you have out there, reduces yield loss, and has the durability where maybe you don't have to trade it as often. And it's designed to be rebuilt at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And GT, then GT brought in another level on reducing yield loss by what we created the name quad suspension. So each deck plate has there's two shock absorbers basically underneath each deck plate. So when the ear comes down, and that deck plate, because when you want to drive fast, you got to run it faster. And what they did was almost virtually eliminate ear bounce off the deck plate by doing that. And it's, again, as we were showing them our issues here with yield loss, they would quietly study that and then came back with, I think, a revolutionary idea. And then they enhanced the performance of the automatic deck plate compared to what we had in Series 1 and Series 2. They enhanced the performance of that. The farmers wanted a bigger auger because they're traveling faster, they're moving more material faster. We came to that point with one of the industry's largest augers, and it's been exciting. It's been exciting, but it's the idea that we run a lot of things, new things that our farm operation is able to do. We didn't, Darlene and I did not move our business into the city and set up a big fancy headquarters.
Right.
We kept it on our farm and build our business there. So we have corn out our front yard, and we have corn in the backyard, and we sell corn heads.
Yeah, there you go.
We focus on that. So
well, and you got me sold. I always blame our combine. That's the problem. We've had 3 combines basically my entire life, if you will. I'm 44 years old. We went from a 7,700. We probably averaged 14 to 15 years per combine.
Yeah.
And then we went, made the big upgrade to a 9,500. Now we've been running a 9,570 probably since 2012. I think my dad bought an 11 that was 1 year demoed, if you will. And our big upgrade was, and this type of farm, and vastly different than Scott over here, but we've got a new to us, brand new at the time, C8R corn head. And we thought, oh man, our volunteers so minimal, what are these cows going to find to lick up and eat out there? And, really it just goes to show we could rebuild that 608C a dozen times. And I blame the corn from going out the back of the combine. In all reality, I think we just shell off at the head. And, when we have so much, everything that we farm is irrigated, obviously outside of a few dryland corners, and you go into those different hybrid numbers. Again, you're exactly right. It's what I kind of am reminded by with our hydraulic deck plates is when I used to plant with pneumatic down pressure. If you had springs on your planter, it didn't matter. You're at the mercy of the spring god. Now when you had pneumatic, brought in, it's like, well, gosh, I don't know, 150 pounds, 250 pounds. What do I even adjust this to? You're kind of winging it, and you're watching those row units like piano keys. You think you have kind of a logic there, but there is none. You just kind of set it and pray for the best. And that's half my dad's battle when he runs the combine. He goes, God dang, keep tightening the deck plates, and then we're plugging, we're burning out the reverser, we're trying to get it cleared out, and I think that's been our biggest battles, the damn deck plates.
Because, again, I mean, hydraulic deck plates was a big jump. And
right.
We know that one of our good competitors is finally stepping into that arena, and we know exactly what it is. We've been running it ourselves side by side. We understand it. We'll have, if anybody's interested, we have some really nice information on that.
Yeah,
how that works. But but the deck plate, you're right. When you're running hydraulic deck plates, you know, and if you start running them too tight, you can plug the row unit.
Mm-hmm.
That happens. What happened? That happens. You get into the tougher, you know, it's things are tougher in the morning, in the evening, and whatever, and that happens. Say you've been, you know, your operator, you don't know. Again, it isn't like who's actually running the combine. You know, who's actually running the combine.
Yeah.
You know, you're trusting them to, you know, adjust the deck plates.
Yeah.
I know farmers that will unhook the hydraulic deck plates so somebody doesn't screw it up.
Yeah.
And what happens is that operators are running, they plug, they open it up, they reverse or whatever, take off. They forget to close the deck plates.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I guarantee it. That's the problem.
It can be huge.
Yes.
Unless there's an alarm on some kind of alarm on your yield monitor.
Yeah, for grain loss. Yeah.
Again, yield loss can go from nil to huge.
Yeah. Very
quickly from one part of the day to the next, from one variety to the next. And it's very difficult as an operator to stay on top of that. What is the best? If you know, you can squeeze them down, but you start breaking off more plants. You know, and the more plants you bring into the plant material MOG material other than grain, you know, your combine is set to, you know, for a certain ratio of that to get proper separation. And, you know, then you hear, you know, well, okay, you know, somebody's got an idea. They're going to put some sensors. They're going to put some sensors on the deck plates, and then they're going to sense, you know, if there's some grain loss, you know, we'll put some AI down there. Okay, I don't know.
Right.
You know, it's more sensors. Well, that's all we need is more sensors.
Yeah, right.
Hydraulics. We need that technology. Don't take me wrong, but we don't need it everywhere. When our system is every row real time is adjusting itself to the stock in that row, and you know, because if hydraulic deck plates, it's a guess. It's a guess from the cab, and to say what's right or wrong, and mistakes can be made, and they will be made, and you know, we eliminate that. And it's been a great feature, and we're excited that we're seeing some other companies finally say, well, yeah, that is critical. We better do something. Well, welcome to the party.
25 years later, you know, they have to follow the leader. Yeah. And it's just, it's interesting. Even the cushion on the deck plates, and that was another angle. And I think once a guy goes Team Drago, they're basically all in. And it's just, and farmers, and I'm guilty of this too. You make an upgrade, you got to tell everybody about it, because you got to justify not only in your head, but your neighbors' opinions, why you made that upgrade. And I think that's, it works really well for you guys. I think a lot of folks, they get converted and they never go back.
Because a critical number to realize is that I think it was out of the University of Nebraska that 60% of harvest loss when harvesting corn is at the corn head.
Yes.
60%. And, you know, because, you know, combines, we have grain loss sensors in the back that you program and stuff, and it'll alert you. And now, you know, we have combines that automatically adjust themselves, you know, across the field, which is wonderful technology. But, you know, when it comes to the head, you know, if they do come up with sensors to put underneath that, think about what it's doing. It's waiting till you have yield loss. Then the computer is going to tell another computer, well, maybe you need to adjust this deck plate down, and then, but it's after the fact.
Yes.
What the beauty of Drago with our design and how it works in a wider range of conditions than anybody else is that it's each row, because one row, you get, the bigger these corn heads get, you know, just think of the yield difference from one side of the corn head, to the other. And the stock size could be huge. You know, and you have micro environments in that row where you're crossing in and out of micro environments where you're going from big stock to small stocks. You know, you might have a big stock with a good ear, and then maybe a short little nubbin, you know, that, you know, maybe it was a good year. You had a good year, and that year that plant tried to put another ear on. Well, you can say, well, I should have planted thicker. Well, once you're harvesting, it's too late to make that decision.
It's too late now. And you know, in a year like this, the disease was so widespread.
And that little nubbing might be all the profit you're ever going to get out of that whole, you know, that whole field. It's like the corn that goes on the ground, the harvest loss, the bank that's not the banks.
Right.
That's not the landlords. Mm-hmm. That's not the equipment company, finance company. That's your profit on the ground, you know. And so, you know, having these features, you know, that do that. And then, you know, the durability. I mean, that's one thing we haven't, you know, today. I appreciate your time. I'm sorry I get carried away.
This has been awesome, Denny. I think it's not only a sales pitch, but it's just the whole picture here is beautiful.
But what's beautiful, you know, and I haven't thanked my sons enough too in this, that are in the office back in Iowa dealing with this weather. I'm down here. We're down here in Arizona. I think, you know, my wife had to put up with the little drafty Iowa farmhouses, and, you know, I got to bring her down to warmer weather. And
right.
I'm afraid we're missing all the fun up in the Midwest right now. But we have three sons: Dustin, who's head of marketing and sales; Derek, who's financing operations; and our son Devin is in parts and service. Okay. And, you know, they're as passionate or more passionate than me about this product and doing the right thing for our customers, and, you know, managing the company on a day-to-day basis. And I'm trying to phase out, but it's hard to do. Yeah. It's hard to phase out. And it's like farming. It's kind of like in your blood, bad habit or not, you know, it's just kind of part of who you are. And but another point that the GT and this is why Olemac is so special in building and designing, because when we talk about durability, you know, we're gear driven. Okay. You know, we don't have chains to run the side chains there. It's all gear driven, which is more efficient than a roller chain. You know, it's more durable than a roller chain system. Mm-hmm. But when you look at, you know, the individual parts made by Drago, the part quality is unmatched. And in the factory, and how they check, you know, how they check the
integrity testing.
They check their part control quality is higher than anybody else in the ag industry. And not to say that it's, you know, he still might not have something break, but they're doing their due diligence to make sure. And you know, I encourage, if we have some videos of the factory, I encourage anybody, if they want to go watch those. But to create durability on a row unit, you know, typical row units had like one clutch to manage the whole row unit. Yeah. And in those components, you have two gathering chains, and you have your stock rollers, and maybe you have a chopper, you know, where Drago has chopper options that you can add after the fact. You know, we can buy the head without, add it later, or take it off when you know, if you know, if it's head trades off, doesn't have one chopper, take the choppers off. But those I consider components of a row unit. And when you have one clutch, or maybe two at the most, protecting, it's got to be set to heavy enough so it can still handle all the torque on a normal harvest situation. What Drago did with what we call independent component protection, since they were building their own gears, since they build their own gearboxes, and they machine their own gears to a higher level than anybody else, they designed where they built a slip clutch right into the gear, a radial pin slip clutch into the gear, So each gathering chain has its own slip clutch that's set to protect that component.
I see.
Each pair of stock rollers has a slip clutch for that pair of stock rollers. Each chopper has its own slip clutch, and it's built right into the gear, and it's running in a synthetic oil.
Yeah.
You know, that's just I think an amazing thing, because they build more of their own components than any other ag company that I know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had no idea. Yeah, and we're what I was getting at. We're almost due, Denny. So we'll continue. We'll talk with more of, you know, maybe a rep here in my neck of the woods, and yeah, we're on the cusp. But you know, anymore, it's hard to justify, as small of a farmer as I am, to, you know, even harvest our own anymore. But it sure is fun.
Yeah.
So yeah,
well,
that's the catch.
You know, again, the older Dragos are. I will still put one of our oldest Dragos. You know, we have heads that are 20 years old still running.
Yeah.
I mean, they're you might have to change a gathering chain. You might have to replace the knives on the stock rollers. Are they as simple as the GT? No, they're probably, you know, but I will put them up yield wise against the newest stuff by our competitors right now. A 20-year-old head. Put them in down corn, put them in dry, shelly conditions, and I'll put them up against anything that's on the market right now.
So is there a new generation of the GT on the coming soon? Or
There's
I guess
always something new. There's always something new, but no, nothing that, you know, nothing, the things I can't talk about.
Right.
But you know, there's always ideas and stuff like that. So no.
And that's what's so cool about, you know, like you said, more of a family-owned operation. You can actually be nimble. You know, some of that input really goes into the design, and the changes are more frequent. And that's what we say at Tractor Tuesday. We're a software company, and a lot of people don't quite understand what we're doing behind the scenes. If I don't like the coffee over here, guess what? I bring in some new beans. It's in the coffee maker. I know how the big guys down the road work. You know, they need basically 3 different approvals to even change the beans in their coffee machine. So it's just, I get it. You know, some people can move a little bit more nimble.
Yeah. No, and that's, you know, where we just pick up the phone and we're talking to them on, you know, weekly, daily basis, you know, sharing ideas. Our operation, we own the best of John Deere, the best of Case New Holland corn heads, and we run them. We run them beside. We run them in different conditions. We understand them, and we're able to do that. They'll come over. They'll come over, ride with us. I actually, like put a body harness on them to keep them from not, falling in the damn thing. So it's just, when you see people that are that passionate, it's hard not to be passionate yourself.
Yeah, and it's so easily demonstrable. At Husker Harvest Days, they'll do these demonstrations, and I think that's, again, really bolstered my part of Nebraska to really be interested in at least the brand and the idea of making that upgrade. And it's really exciting. And really, it's just, you're taking something that now, I mean, who would have thought 2002? We're talking 24 years ago, and time flies. But again, it's still the same old beans and the other guys' coffee makers. And, I think sometimes it's time, if you don't like the flavor, sometimes you got to make a switch.
Yeah. And my opportunities I've had, and the people I've met, I'm not smarter than anybody else. I have just had the opportunity to meet some really good people. Maybe I've met some not so good people, and they've led me to better people.
Right.
And so that's what I am blessed with. Our family has been blessed with this. We're blessed with some great relationships. And, when I started working, we really got this rocking over here. My history is my original Concord company. They got bought by Case IH, DMI.
Yeah.
After I worked for DMI, they got bought by Case IH, and then, then Case New Holland got got by Case New Holland, and I brought this up in a conversation with a family, the Carboni family, the older gentleman, Giuseppe, I having a glass of wine with him, and I said, Joseph, we are blessed to have opportunity to work with you, but where are Darlene and I in this thing when we get it going, and that one of the majors comes here and waves a bunch of money under your nose. And at first the old man, he kind of leaned back and frowned a little bit. Then he leaned into me and smiled, and he said, Denny, that would be like selling my son.
Yeah.
This is who we are.
Yeah.
This is what we do. He said, what would my family do? He said, we have money. And to me, it was a rock back moment. I'm from America. Everything is fast, quick, and for sale.
Right.
And this gentleman is telling me that, no, we don't need the money. We do this. This is what my family does.
Mm-hmm.
They have passion to do things because it's possible, not because the market is forcing them to. And if we ever get a chance to go to the factory, they built new factories since we started. I went to the original factory, and then they built a modern marvel of a factory. And now they've doubled that to try to keep up with the market, and we can't build enough corn heads for everybody,
Right.
And like I said, we're kind of bucking a trend right now where a lot of ag equipment sales are down, and
you're still doing it.
I think it speaks to the product that and our message has been the same for 20 plus years, is that, reducing yield loss, return on investment, and durability.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. And I think a little bit of more of an eye opener today than I thought it was going to be, and it's always interesting to just hear it from, especially your perspective, Denny, because there's so much information out there, but sometimes as a farmer and a producer, you get that tunnel vision, and you can just kind of see what's right in front of you. And for us, it's those damn hydraulic deck plates we're always trying to figure out. And, that's a lot of it.
We have a lot of great dealers, a lot of great dealers, and that, again, our sons are doing a great job running the company for us. Darlene and I are just kind of, we like to stay informed, and, on key decisions and relationships. We continue our relationships. We'll probably be going to Europe here in the next month or so, catch up with them. But when it comes to, expanding, our green friends, they tend to kind of keep us at an arm's length in their dealerships. That's the way they compete. It's not, some people think that we're not selling through, we have green dealers in the Texas and the East Coast and like that, but in the heart of the Corn Belt, we're not in some of these green stores because John Deere, Mother Deere doesn't, like that. And it makes me proud. I think we're doing something right if it bothers them. And we like competition. It pushes, everybody should have competition. And so we enjoy being competitive. And I think our product speaks to that.
Yeah. Well, and I think the future is bright, for a lot of innovators in this space. And obviously you guys are more seasoned and have really shown that continual growth as well. So it's exciting. And, it's just more of that support network. I think that was big, and you guys grew the right way. You didn't get too big too fast. And I think that's a key takeaway for me when I learn more about your story.
Yeah. Are you impacted by any of the tariffs going on right now, Denny?
Of course, but no differently than what John Deere, Case New Holland does. They, our green friends, their gearboxes come from Spain and bearings from all over the world, and components from, whether it's Korea, Mexico, China, our Red friends too. A lot of components that are built globally and are affected by tariffs. So yeah, it has impact.
Have
And
they lifted those yet in the United States on ag components or products? I guess
yeah,
I hear so much,
you
but
get
it's just,
on the
yeah,
parts and stuff like that. There's, it's where the thing might be assembled. The components might come from all over the world, but
right.
those components are still going to be tariffed. And
Mhm.
yeah, we're impacted by it. We manage it fine. Um, I guess I'm fine as long as our competitors are having to, pay
Yeah,
the,
same playing field.
and I understand why. You
Mhm.
can have disagreements on how it's being implemented, but I
Right.
understand why. And I
Yeah.
think but right now with America, there's no simple answers. There's
Mhm.
no simple answers to the situation we're in, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay.
I think what is simple is just automatic deck plates. I just love it, and it drives me crazy that I've continued to allow that to be a problem, and I think that's something I need to address here before Harvest 26 comes up. So
Yeah.
we'll I won't waste your time, Denny, but I'll be definitely in communication
Well,
with some of you
again,
guys.
get a hold of our sons, and like I said, they do a wonderful job for us.
Yeah.
They're passionate about doing what's right for our customers. And again, I have to go
Mhm.
back and thank our Drago customers through the years for
Yeah.
helping get to where we're at. And again, when I said about our network of good dealers and great employees that help us continue on this mission.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I think it's really interesting, and just some of the guys that are affiliated. I was looking through here trying to find, but someone out of Central Illinois, and I think they're more so of a horse dealer, but then they also carry Drago, and so I reached out months ago, and I think it had something to do with me being at Agrotechnica and something
Mm-hmm.
going on over there. And this guy, Ryan, just boom, wrote back almost immediately. It's like, oh, maybe this could be potentially a sale here. And just really interesting. And I think that's speaks a lot to, again, being nimble and really trying to get a deal done and continue to grow when a lot of sales guys are just sitting on their hands and maybe it'll get better. Who's this
Yeah.
guy? Why is he reaching out to me? Maybe there's a sale opportunity. So,
Yeah. No, that's
well,
well,
hey, yeah, go ahead. Do you have any final thoughts, I guess, or anything that you'd like to tell the
no. Again,
audience?
just,
Yeah.
want to thank. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to do this. I want to thank, like I said, our customers, our dealers, our
Yeah.
employees. I truly, want to thank our great friends in Europe, the Baumans and the Carbonis at the factory, for giving us this opportunity that has been a true blessing for our family.
Yeah.
And we are just truly blessed to be in the position we are, and it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, we're excited to see how this year kind of shapes out. And there's always opportunity. I think that's the key takeaway. It's very easy to get frustrated, as a producer, with everything that's going on right now. And, it's just something my dad said, and I quote him probably way too much for this live stream, but it's just, just when you're about ready to quit, if you just would have held on a little bit longer, that windfall is just right around the corner. And
Well, been there, done that. We have, like I said, we've survived some serious cycles, and ag is, the young people that, I would say, yeah, hang in there, learn from your mistakes.
mhm,
This, allow this cycle to change your look at, how you farm, how you invest, in equipment.
mhm.
And, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, just hang in there. It will cycle.
Yeah,
It,
I think so.
it might not seem that way, but
Mhm.
that's the best advice I can give you is just, tighten your belt, do what you got to do. If you can't buy equipment, you can't buy equipment. But, and I tell my salespeople this too, that we are continuing to always plant the seed.
Exactly. It may not be a sale today, but you never know, 2 to 3 years down the road, a guy might get away from adjusting their deck plates every 5 minutes. So,
yeah. I mean, it's just, for me, it's impressive to have guys like Denny. And then last week we had Don Freimiller, who came from a dairy farm. And Denny, you came from a very small farm. You would look for opportunities. You did custom work. Then you seen the opportunity with Concord. You're like, there's got to be a better way to do what we're doing. Yeah. And that curiosity and that drive just led you down this road to end up where you are today. It's just impressive. I mean, you're a regular farm guy, just like me, Zach, Dad, everybody. And you just kept pushing and pushing for innovation and how can I do this better? And it's just impressive. And if anybody can get anything out of this, I mean, that's the only thing you did that was different from the farmer who just going to the coffee shop playing a victim. The commodity prices are bad. The farmer just go to the coffee shop. They have this victim mentality rather than saying, how can we do this better? How can we do this more efficiently? How can we bring more grain into the combine with your corn heads or whatever it is? How can you put down your fertilizer at the same time you're planting, like what you did with the Concord? I mean, it's just, you got a great story, Denny. Thanks so much for sharing it with us. That was great.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess just the key takeaway here, everybody, paying attention on Tractor Tuesday Live. Let's stay positive. We'll get through it. If your banker won't approve you, and you got to clear up that balance sheet, we've got the tools for that. We'll make it a little bit easier to get you situated with your banker again. But again, I'm Zach Bosley with Tractor Tuesday, Scott Anderson, New Age Ag Supply. If you haven't been able to tell, we don't know when we're going to go live. We kind of work with our phenomenal guests and their schedules. So make sure to like, subscribe, sign up for notifications. We don't have really a set time. Tomorrow, we've got another awesome show. Dr. Sean Baker, famous with the carnivore diet, is on our show tomorrow, I believe 3 p.m. Central. But I guess, Dennis, we'll let you go with that. And I appreciate your time today. And again, if you're not familiar with Drago, make sure to look it up a little bit. And we'll feature a little bit more on our blog at Tractor Tuesday to make sure everybody knows that there's another way to do this, and maybe it's a little bit more efficient. But with all that, Dennis, thanks again for your time hopping on, and everybody out there watching today, thank you for being a part of the Tractor Tuesday family. Till the